All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are fortunate enough to have the Athletics Chicago Bears writer Kevin Fishbain, a award-winning writer. Our second one we've ever had on the show, too. MJ, I'm actually pretty
Yes,
impressed by this. So now we have a Packers beat writer, and now we have, thankfully, a Chicago Bears beat writer, Kevin Fishbain, joining us. Kevin, how you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you guys for having me.
Much
absolutely.
much
Um,
appreciated,
so,
Kevin. Much appreciated.
so Kevin, just the notice that we give everybody before we start going. I met Bruce. He was my high school baseball coach too many years ago now at this point. And so we bicker like an old married couple, especially because at heart I'm a Packers fan and he is a Bears fan. So just to warn you on that. Honestly, this year I've been more of a Bears fan than a Packers fan, but that's a whole different story. The first thing that I think we want to throw out there, Bruce has some numbers on this. I'm just curious. Give me a little bit of your thoughts on Chase Claypool, how he's been fitting into the offense, how that addition has been going, because it was a big splash, supposedly stolen from the Packers. So how's that been looking for Chicago so far?
Yeah, I think the first week you definitely saw what they saw in him, right? He came on the field
Hmm.
the third snap of the game, draws that pass interference flag. They got him involved a little bit more, and then the last drive, of course, the pass interference flag that was not thrown. It was a little interesting to see this week. His snaps were a little bit decreased.
19 only.
Um, Yeah, 19 only. The last drive, it looked like Justin Fields was thinking back shoulder, and Claypool was still going down the field. So some communication there. So I think they're still obviously working him in. His only catch that game was just on a touch pass. But you'd almost like, especially the way the team is right now, you'd almost like to see them force it to him, right? Like you'd like to
Yeah.
say, hey, which is almost kind of what he did on that the back shoulder. Somebody brought this up to me earlier today that if you watch that play again, Darnell Mooney gets wide open over the middle of the field, but Fields goes straight to Claypool, and I'm actually okay with that, because again,
I
if
agree.
that's his first read, and you get a guy like Claypool who's supposed to kind of be the type of guy that's open when he's not open,
Yeah.
you got to
Right.
take those opportunities and get
Right.
used to it. So I think that that same like 35% snap count this week, I think then you're kind of wondering, well, what's going on here? Why is this taking so long? You can maybe get a little jittery, but I think maybe we'll chalk it up to just first two games, new offense, detailed offense, just trying to get to know all the spots he needs to know.
No, that's fair, and especially as a fan, like believe me, I was one of the people that were very upset at the lack of snaps for Claypool this week. But I want to jump into a different area too. A lot of times, like there's been talk about the Chicago Bears offense, about the running game only, and how Justin Fields can't pass the ball. Not for me personally, because he's a playmaker. I like what he's doing. They've averaged I think 31 points per game in the past four games, and defensively they've allowed 32. So the offensively with Luke Getzey, they were able to make adjustments accordingly to maximize the ability of the talent that's around them offensively. So defensively, I want to know if you know anything about any adjustments that Alan Williams is going to be making for the defense.
Yeah, it's an interesting question because last week we saw them definitely blitz a lot more than they did the
Hmm.
previous week. They didn't really blitz Tua until the second half, fourth quarter, um, and that was a different game plan. Excuse me, sorry guys. Told you
No, you're good.
everyone's got that.
See,
We all
we're
got
all
that
we're
same
all
cough
sick,
Yep.
bug.
brother. We're all
Yeah,
sick,
we're
man.
all there. Um, so you saw, and then Jared Goff, then they blitzed a little bit more. They put more pressure on him. It didn't work necessarily. Um, so I do feel like they are a game plan team when it
Hmm.
comes to the
Good point.
pressure. It's like, all right, Tua is somebody that they didn't feel like they didn't want to pressure because they were afraid he'd escape and get outside the pocket. That turned out to be kind of the wrong move because they didn't do well in coverage. This
Right.
week with Mariota, who's been a runner a lot, I wonder if they stay back a little bit and not pressure him as much. What I thought was really interesting was Matt Eberflus was asked about this on Monday, I believe, and he made a comment about how they need more from the linebackers and the safeties. when it comes to getting pressure on the quarterback, which is essentially him saying our front
Blitz.
four isn't good enough.
Correct.
Yeah.
This is a defense, as you guys know, this is a scheme where you're expecting your front four to get home. That's why they don't blitz very much. So
all zone.
You know, I think that they are understanding their limitations on that defensive line. They just don't have enough guys who are good enough to rush the passer consistently. So, like, schematically speaking, that's kind of what I'm looking at most. Is and on the thing about defense too is, like, I'm trying to almost only watch the guys who are going to be here next year, right? And that might be like half the defense.
Yep.
It might just be, is Dominique Robinson going to be a starter next year? Is Travis Gibson going to be on the team next year? I know it sounds a little crazy when you think about it, but they have to go invest in defensive ends.
Yep.
And you look at Justin Jones; he's been the most impactful guy up there, and he's under contract again for next year. Does Nick Morrow, is he going to do enough to earn a new contract? Is Jack Sanborn, was this just a 2-game blip, or is he really going to be the middle linebacker next year? So, Jalen Johnson, Kyler Gordon, Jaquan Brisker will all be in their spots. But I'm really curious about that front seven. Are there guys like Sanborn's right there? Like, do they have something in Jack Sanborn so that Ryan Poles does not have to waste resources on a middle linebacker?
Right.
Like, that would be the dream for that to happen, for him to kind of come into his own and give them that opportunity. Can Nick Morrow really play well out on the stretch? They don't need to go get a weak side linebacker. You could argue they could upgrade both. So that's kind of the thing I'm watching, because I just wonder how limited Alan Williams is scheme wise by the personnel that he has.
Fair.
Kevin, I'm curious. I don't know how big of a draft guy you are. Obviously, you got to cover the draft when it comes around. Some people are bigger draft nerds than others. It's always been hard for me to get into it before January or so, which I should get better at. But is there any sense whether, because the Bears have so much cap room, how much do you think they should go for it, in a sense of maybe spend the majority of that money versus try and invest more in the draft capital that they have this year, for the first time in a long time, having all of their own picks and things of that nature?
Yeah, it's going to be one of the more interesting off seasons that I've covered, just because the Bears haven't had this much resources in a long time. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but there is a salary floor. Like, they have to spend a certain amount of money.
Right.
So, they can't just kind of sit there and just carry it all over into the following year. I think Miami is an interesting test case. I mean, and Philadelphia too, right? Those are two teams that entered this year with third-year quarterbacks that you could argue were unproven. Go all in on A.J. Brown. We know what Hy Roseman's done with his draft wheeling and dealing. You see where they are now. Miami goes all in. They get Tyreek Hill. They get who's their left tackle that they spent big money on? I always forget.
Oh, from Miami? Ooh.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we don't have our producer on.
But they decided to kind of put all the resources around Tua.
Armstead.
Tron Armstead from New Orleans. So they went all in to say, like, hey, we're going to give Tua everything that we can, and if he's great, we know we got our guy, and if not, with all these things around him, then we know we have to get a quarterback. And so I could see the Bears doing a similar thing, being like, all right, Fields' third year, we know a lot about him. We don't know yet if we're going to give him one of those massive contracts. So we have all those resources. Let's build. Let's give him more help at receiver, more help in the offensive line. Let's load up this defense. So I do think it's going to be a two-pronged attack. And a story I always tell every offseason is, I think it was the 2016 offseason. January, February, all Bears writers were researching inside linebackers, because it was apparent that Vic Fangio needed inside linebackers for his 3-4 defense. The first year he was here, they just kind of the guys that were here and tried to. I think they tried to move Shea McClellan inside. It just didn't work. So we knew that was priority number one. So I remember going to the Senior Bowl and I'm watching these guys and I'm interviewing them and writing about them. And then March 12th or whatever it is, free agency comes up. What do the Bears do? They signed Danny Trevathan. They signed Jarrell Freeman.
It's a great, and Trevathan was a great signing.
Great signing. Look, and Jarrell Freeman before he got hurt,
right?
Pretty good too. So and they did still draft Nick Kwiatkowski in the 4th round, but that's always like my reminder because we'll be sitting here. The Bears, as you mentioned, they have so many needs. Like you can go down the list, but free agency is going to obviously dictate what they do in the draft. So that's my long rambling answer. To say I do see them being aggressive. I do see them realizing that you can't it's not the baseball. You can't have like a 5-year rebuild. Like these guys, these owners are impatient. Fans are impatient. It's a league where you can do what the Bengals did last year. You can do what the Eagles are doing right now. So like I think because they're going to have those resources, because they've seen enough flashes from Justin Fields, that they're going to be able to kind of be aggressive and like I hesitate to like go for it, but at least really bulk this team up to put themselves in a better position.
So to kind of jump off that point, where do you foresee them actually going with regards to building this team? Do you see them? Do you see polls leaning more towards free agency? The only reason why I'm asking that question is because acquiring Chase Claypool, you're trading a draft capital, and essentially Claypool is your 2nd round pick, aside from the pick they got from the Ravens, I believe. Still, so. Do you see more success in polls and the rest of whomever that is part of that draft process being more successful in the draft, or do you see them being more successful in free agency coming up?
It's a good question because one of the things is we don't really know Ryan Poles, the free agent guy, right? He had made the one aggressive move to get Larry Ogunjobi, and then he failed his physical. The rest of the guys are 1 and 2 year minimum, low money prove-it deals. Like he did not sign. I think I want to say Justin Jones at $5 million a year.
Yeah,
like the highest paid guy. But so really, so this is total new territory for us covering Ryan Poles in terms of how he's going to handle that. Is he going to, I guess if you look back to what would be a good comparison. All right, 2018 free agency. Mitch Trubisky entering his 2nd year. And they had a ton of money to spend. And they went ahead and they spent on Allen Robinson. They spent on Trey Burton. They spent on Taylor Gabriel. They spent on Cody Parkey. Made him one of the highest paid kickers in football. Excuse me, that did not work out, obviously.
The cough is perfect at that timing, by the way.
Yeah. So, I could see Poles being somebody who is not good. And I also don't think there's going to be a guy worth the type of, like putting everything in one. You also got to factor in, is he going to want to save that money to give Darnell Mooney a new contract, to give Jalen Johnson a new contract, to give Cole Kmet a new contract? Those 3 guys are all eligible for new deals next year. If Chase Claypool is a great final month, does he get into that category as well? So you have all those things in mind. So I think that free agency it's going to be kind of new territory for us where he's actually going to have the ability to be a little bit aggressive.
Fair.
Kevin, I'm curious, how much does the prospect of a new stadium play into the Bears timeline and whether or not they want to push, be patient? How much, if all, does that play into it? And what have you heard in Chicago about that new stadium? Because I know at least from the fan perspective, people are pretty excited about it.
Yeah, well, I guess 2 things there. One is when it comes to, how long is this thing going to take, and your time. There's one important thing probably when it comes to the franchise's timing, and that's Virginia McCaskey. And this is going to be an ownership group that I think George McCaskey understood what was going on this offseason. He understood how limited Ryan Poles was. But this is an ownership group that wants to win. And that is starving for winning. So I think that they're going to be ready to jump back in, whether the stadium's coming in 2026 or 2036. I think they want to win as quickly as they can. There is the stadium. It's interesting. Last week, I always tweet a picture of the empty stadium when I get there, and it was a beautiful picture perfect day on the lake. And there were a few people that said, like, I'm going to miss this view. Yeah. And I do think there's a little bit of, it's going to be a bummer to not have this stadium in Chicago where you see the skyline, where you're on Lake Michigan.
Agreed.
I totally get that. And I remember doing a survey over the summer, and that was kind of the one thing that people were most nostalgic for, we're going to miss most, was that element of it. But then you remember how much of a pain it is to get to Soldier Field, how terrible the parking situation is, the amenities there. It's just like, we're going to be going to Atlanta this week, and I'm looking forward to my first time at the new Falcon Stadium.
Yeah.
I mean, the Bears ownership's going to walk in there and be like, oh my gosh. Which is the same thing they do every year when they go to Minnesota. It's the same thing that they did. Let's see, where else have they gone this? When they went to Vegas last year.
Oh,
when they
beautiful.
Went to LA. Like, every time they're at these stadiums, they're like, wow. Like, and they now get a blank slate to do that in Arlington Heights. And I think fans, if the Bears do it right, which is obviously a big if, like, it's going to be an awesome stadium. It's going to be an awesome place to see games. Hopefully it's going to be a very cool surrounding area. So I do think fans will eventually kind of come around to that, but there is going to be a bit of nostalgia in terms of missing having your team in your city and getting those views from the state. It's going to be really funny when they're in Arlington Heights and NBC comes back from commercial on Sunday Night Football.
It's going to be Chicago.
Yeah, you're going to have like the the skyline and like the little, obviously the high rises, and then you go back to the stadium and like, wait a second, that's like 35 minutes away.
You see 53 in the junction, 90 right there.
Yeah.
Love it. Kevin Fishbain from The Athletic we have for a little bit longer, Chicago Bears writer. So talking about more stuff on the field, Kevin, there's one thing that obviously we're seeing Justin Fields develop right before our eyes. Super athletic, amazing player. I think he's a real deal. However, you still have people second guessing his ability as a passer. What do you think him and or Getsy can do to kind of quiet some of the question marks? Because he hasn't been very good in the fourth quarter. You actually wrote one of your articles on The Athletic. His stats in the fourth quarter haven't been very strong. So what do you think that Getsy and Fields can do to improve his passing ability?
It's just going to be more reps and more opportunities and getting used to things with these receivers. Remember, he came into this year where he knew Darnell Mooney and Cole Kmet, and that's it. Everybody else is brand new. And these guys have been going in and out of the lineup. And even when he's throwing good balls to some of these guys, they haven't gone up and gotten them. So you got to factor that in too. So it's just going to take some time. And I think, they have this kind of style of offense is working right now. So you obviously keep relying on that. But yeah, the key is going to be these obvious passing downs. Can he, make the right read, make the right throw, not escape the pocket unless he really needs to? I think those are the things that they're going to be looking for to kind of continue to elevate that part of the game. And then part of that's going to be the know-how, the 2-minute stuff at the end of games. And, I think maybe they learned from Detroit that they can probably call better plays to put in better spots in those situations. Because, again, it's like, you get to that point where the Detroit knows what's coming. So everyone on Detroit's front line is coming at them. And that's where the Bears' offensive line deficiencies stand out. And that's where it stands out that the Bears don't have receivers who can get open quickly. And then Fields is kind of stuck. So you like to see all those things. Like, you just want to be able to see, like more consistent. He can do it. Like, the thing is, he's capable of doing everything you want a quarterback to do. You just want to see it more often, see it more consistently. I think he's done a much better job making his layups, hitting those easy passes. That was a problem earlier in the season. He's making those. So now it's just, when he needs to sit in the pocket and make the read and throw it, can he, if a guy can but I also want to see, and this is where Claypool comes in, can he be a guy that throws players open? Can he be a guy that makes throws that just like, I trust in you, go get it? Can he kind of get his game to that level? Because at some point there's going to be a defense that contains him running.
Yeah, 100%.
It's amazing.
100%.
We haven't seen it, which is amazing. Like, I thought it was hilarious at the first play of the Lions game after he sets an NFL record. He runs for 28 yards.
Right.
was hilarious. Like, it's like, what was Detroit doing all week?
Yeah.
So, but some point, maybe it's this week. I don't know. Maybe it's the next week. Some team is going to have a good plan to force him to stay in the pocket, and I want to see kind of how he reacts to that as a thrower.
Okay.
Kevin, this is, in my opinion, the most important question we can ask a beat writer. What is the best press box food? Any stadium.
I'm glad you asked.
How you've had.
It's one of my favorite questions. You might like to know that Green Bay does a good job. They have a strong spread at Lambeau. Now, I will say it's been a few years since they've had the cheese curds at halftime. I don't know what was going on there. That's a nice touch. I don't think we've had it in a couple of years. Yeah. But they always have the bratwursts out, and they have a nice little they have a good dinner set up there. It's always dinner. We're always there for night game. The Vikings do a great job. They got an omelet bar. They got like an ice cream station.
The Vikings.
They do a good job. LA, last year they had a good taco bar set up. I tell you what though, Jerry Jones.
I mean,
he gets it.
You got ribs or something?
Like, there was just so much. There was just focaccia pizza, and there was a carving station, and there was mac and cheese, and then he's got these giant like towers of candy that you just like you would take your kids to. You hit the lever and just candy comes out, and it's there all game long. After the game, there's a couple beer taps out. Jerry knows how to do it. So those are kind of the ones that come to mind as being some of the better. Pittsburgh's good. Yeah, pretty much every stadium but Soldier Field.
Oh no, don't do that.
It's good. The Soldier Field, the Bears have a good little breakfast that I like, because I like, some places you get there for a noon game and it's like 10:30 in the morning. You don't want to be having like,
super heavy food.
Heavy food, right?
Yeah. So I kind of like the Bears have like a breakfast, and they think they do a good job with it. Yeah, that's it's not their strong suit. Let's put it that way.
That's fair. All right, so Kevin, before we let you go, one last question for you. What's the beer of choice?
My beer of choice.
Like, if you're at home and you're like, you know what, I had a long day, like I'm tired, but at the same time I kind of just want to crack open one. What's the beer? What's the go-to?
I would say, so I like pale ales. I would say like Three Floyd's Gumball Head.
Oh, Gumball, okay.
Yeah, it would probably be in my like rotation, one of my top guys. Fist City, which is a local beer in Chicago.
Fistmas just came out.
Oh, there you go. So I would say, I like the pale ales with maybe a little bit of hint of wheat in them, like those. But I just remember when I was in college going to a bar and seeing the handle for a Gumball Head at the tap, and being like, that looks so cool, and it's called Gumball Head. It has to be good.
Oh yeah.
Lo and behold, it was good. And
love it.
Whether or not I was 21 when I discovered that's not important for the conversation.
Yeah. Hey, well, whatever.
I didn't hear anything.
Yeah, but no, it was So if I'm just long day of work and cracking one open to watch. I was gonna say to watch the game, but it's Wednesday. We're probably catching up on Bachelor in Paradise tonight, is my guess.
Oh, there you go.
So it would be Gumball Head. Yeah.
Love it, Kevin. Love it. All right, man. Well, much appreciated. Thank you so much, Kevin, for joining MJ and I on Third Down Thursdays tonight. Hopefully we see you at the Senior Bowl, because we'll be going back there, hopefully, MJ. And much appreciated. Thank you so much for your time, and don't be a stranger. You're more than welcome to jump on here anytime.
Absolutely, guys. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you.